You did it. You launched your first offer, you hit publish, you showed up everywhere, but now what? Whether you've had a sold out launch or a little bit of a slow start, what you do next is just as important as the launch itself. Post launch momentum is where most entrepreneurs will lose steam and miss major opportunities or fall straight into burnout mode. If you've ever felt exhausted or a little bit directionless after a launch, this episode is for you. Hello and welcome to another episode of Digital Marketing Made Simple. I'm your host, Jenny Lyon, and today I want to talk about what to do after the launch, how to ride that post-launch momentum without burning out. All right, let's jump right on into it. Okay, so the energy of a launch really is intense, but it definitely doesn't have to end in silence once it's over. When it comes to the days and weeks following your launch, those weeks are really full of opportunity. This is when you see a lot of new traffic, you're going to find a lot of fresh eyes on your offers, and potential clients who are still on the fence and haven't quite made their decision yet. So if you drop off the radar after the launch, then you lose all that momentum. And you also risk burning out. I know I hear this a lot where that launch fatigue. But if you have a plan in place, then you can really continue to nurture those leads and book sales without overextending yourself. So a pro tip here is that your post-launch phase should really be a part of your overall launch plan. Don't leave it as an afterthought. That's something that we see a lot where a client may come to us because a launch just wasn't as successful as they had hoped it would be. And then when we audit their launch plan, there is no post-launch strategy at all. And we ask the clients, why is that? And 9 out of 10 times they say, I was just too burnt out. I was so tired from all of the marketing for the launch, getting everything ready, actually launching it, that once it was done, I kind of just forgot about it. So we don't want it to be an afterthought. We really want it to be a part of that overall launch strategy. So here's some things that you should definitely be doing within those first 72 hours once your launch has happened. So once that launch ends, that's where you really want to capitalize on that buzz, on that traffic, and all of those leads who have kind of come into your ecosystem. So here's the things that you want to do. First off, you want to send a post-launch thank you email to everyone. So you want to send very segmented, very personalized emails to your buyers and your non-buyers. Then you want to follow up with any waitlisters or anyone that clicked through but didn't actually purchase. So that should be a completely different follow-up procedure. Then you want to share a really fun debrief on your social media. So maybe hop on Instagram stories or Reels or TikTok. And also send this out to your email list, your general email list. And then as those buyers do start trickling in, this is a great time to start collecting testimonials. If you do that immediately, then you can start sharing those immediately. And if you're not quite sure what to say, this is something that with those particular clients that we ask, why is there not a post-launch strategy? They're like, well, what would I really say to them? It's already over. So if that's something you need help with, reach out. We also do have our high converting follow-up sequence, which you could use to nurture these leads, that don't convert. So you can always grab that at jennylyon.com/email sequence. Okay, next up is how, once that whole launch is finished, how do we repurpose that launch content, right? How could we potentially make that content evergreen? So all of that amazing content, you don't want it to go to waste. You can use it for a lot of different things. We've used launch content for sales emails, to either turn your funnel over into an evergreen funnel or just to use the different types of content to nurture your audience. So for example, we have a client that we recently did a 5-day challenge for, and it was a very successful, very fun launch. And then after that launch, we really started to brainstorm ideas on how can we repurpose some of the content, not all of the content, because we want to utilize that content again for another live launch. But there were other pieces to it. Could we take any of those pieces apart and use those as part of a funnel to start to nurture people, to bring them into a new funnel so that when we launch that 5-day challenge again, we have this pool of really warm leads just ready to say yes. You could also turn it into a replay, right? I've had a lot of clients where they will do a launch and then, we'll make it evergreen, repackage it, put it into maybe a mini email funnel. You can also use parts of it for your social media, your blog content, a lot of great things. Another thing I really like to look at when it comes to post-launch is what type of questions are we getting? You will quickly see what blind spots you have when the questions start coming in. And it's a great time to make sure that you're incorporating those into the next launch, but also maybe they could be part of an onboarding document or some sort of FAQ page. So you want to keep that in mind for future promos. And when it comes to repurposing content, a pro tip here to really ensure that you're keeping it burnout free is visibility, right? You already did the work. Don't make it harder for yourself. Use the content in as many ways as you can without diluting it if you plan on running this particular launch again. All right, next up is how do we keep these leads warm? Well, we do that with smart follow-up. So that means you're going to have a lot of people that come into your funnel, come into your ecosystem during the launch that don't convert. That does not mean that they are not interested. They may just not be ready for one reason or another. So with that being said, you want to stay in touch with them. So you can do that a lot of different ways. Some of my favorite ways are emails, educate them, entertain them, inspire them, and do it on a consistent basis, So depending on what your other email, sequences and strategy looks like, you want to make sure to work that in. You can also do that with different types of case studies. So we talked about micro case studies a couple of weeks ago, and those are really fantastic for showing recent wins. So check that out if you missed it. It's an episode or two ahead of this one or behind this one. All right, next up is invite people to maybe book a discovery call or some sort of free strategy call with you, or to download a lead magnet. So again, talking about that previous client that we have with the challenge, that's what we did after the challenge, was create a lead magnet that is a natural jumping off point for the launch. That way we can run ads to it, we can share it on social media, we can put it on the website, and it's collecting this pool of people for us. This is where a nurture sequence really does become powerful, especially if it's tailored to those post-launch leads. Okay, next up is retargeting and replays. So this is where we definitely don't want all of that interest that we've kind of drummed up with this launch to go cold. So a lot of things can be done here, but I really do believe in running retargeted ads. If you run retargeting ads, you can run them to people who visited your sales page but didn't convert, people who attended and didn't convert, or maybe if you have some sort of follow-up, like maybe a video follow-up, if they watched the video but didn't convert, and then any types of email subscribers who clicked through but didn't buy. So there's a lot of great tools out there depending on which direction you go. If you're going to run like Meta ads, you can use their tools, or Google ads. These can really help you to stay visible without recreating all of that launch energy. We already know a launch is a lot of work. So we really want to make post-launch as successful as possible, but also as simple as possible. So another pro tip here is to include a limited time replay offer or a bonus, something for people who missed the live cart close. this really does work. It seems like it wouldn't, but it does. So if you can offer them some sort of just limited time, offer, this is your last chance, really drive that sense of urgency, you will get some of those stragglers who are just kind of on the fence and not quite sure, especially if you have a bonus tied to it. Okay, and then last but not least is to refill that lead funnel. So this is what I'm talking about. We don't want to start over. We want to use what we already have, that momentum. So launches bring in a lot of attention. So you really want that attention to lead somewhere, So even if they don't convert, you can still use some of this content or other types of content that's complementary to it to keep your funnel full. So think about things like promoting those lead magnets that you have. Do that on a consistent basis. Maybe you need to go back through some of your content on your website and SEO optimize it, something like that, or publishing new content that's SEO optimized that leads into your funnel. And of course, using the social proof, the testimonials, all of those things, use them in ads, in your posts, in your website, all of the places. And don't forget, you can really continue generating ads with an evergreen version of your offer. So that's something that you really want to consider as well. So this is some of the ideas that, we found be really successful when it comes to the end of the launch. You just want to remember the end of the launch doesn't necessarily mean the end of the momentum. If you have a really smart post-launch strategy in place, you can really stretch out that visibility. You can continue to nurture those leads and really build towards that next big promo without burning out. So that's such a big thing. Burnout is so real when it comes to launching these types of offers. It's a lot of work, and it can really be frustrating if you get to the end and you haven't quite hit the numbers that you were hoping for. So this is where having that post-launch strategy in place can really make a huge difference. And if you are ready to build a full launch strategy, or if you just need help with the post-launch strategy, then reach out. This is something we do pretty much every single day. We can really ensure that any part of your launch strategy drives the results that you're looking for. And you can book a free marketing momentum call with my team, and we'll map it out together. You can always do so at jennylyon.com/marketing. They are incredible. You most likely will talk with Amber, who we love, and she will get you worked out. Launch strategy is her jam. So if you haven't scheduled the call, schedule one. She will be very excited to chat with you. All right, well, that's what I have for you this week. I hope that you found these tips helpful. I know from experience over and over again how stressful a launch can be. And I see this every time we launch with clients. We try to make it as, seamless as possible, but they can't help but feel stressed. It's your offer, it's your baby. You want it to do well, but we can really help you to iron out any types of kinks so that your launch is successful as it possibly can be. And that by the end of it, you're not burnout, you're excited. That client I'm talking about, when we were done, he was not burnt out. He was excited. He was like, when are we doing the next one? So that's what we want for you. All right, well, that's what I have for you this week. I hope you found these tips helpful, and I'll see you next time on another episode of Digital Marketing Made Simple. See you soon.